Not all that long ago, the niche 0 was a grinder to have, but as time and a little healthy competition does, its popularity faded. Even as a big fan of the grinder, mine eventually made its way to backup duty, then back up to the backup, and began to gather dust. But a few months back, Sworksdesign offered up a pre-order for their flat burr conversion kit, which I should note is not affiliated with niche the company. But moving into flat burrs is an interesting proposition, as it promised that familiar niche workflow with a completely different brewing and in-the-cup experience. And honestly, that's a pretty attractive offer, yet modifications that make broad, fundamental changes to just one aspect can be a little iffy. Because as modifications do, they often change just one thing, leaving everything else as it was, and this can result in issues. For instance, think about that in terms of modifying a car. Of course, you can make it faster, but that will also increase engine wear, braking distance, and you get the point. But as new coffee gear often does, my curiosity got the best of me, so I threw in a pre-order, and after a few hiccups, like for some reason my grinder being an odd outlier with chamber sizing and materials, and for some reason not having a serial number, a couple weeks ago, they arrived. Since then, my niche has been spinning some flat burrs, and I thought it may be worth chatting about, showing the modification in detail, its installation, and getting into some brews and my first overall impressions. But before we get into any of that, a quick word from this video's sponsor, Cometeer Coffee. These unassuming, fully recyclable capsules are chock full of coffee goodness. As a barista and just general all-around coffee lover, Cometeer is my go-to for those lazy or busy mornings when I just want a nice simple cup of coffee without the whole production. Cometeer takes care of the hard part for you, brewing each coffee at its peak flavor and then flash frozen to seal it in. Then when the feeling strikes for some coffee, I just simply put one into a glass, thaw the contents under hot water, and enjoy a tasty and quick cup of specialty coffee. Literally the most difficult thing about Cometeer is deciding which coffee you're going to make, because each order comes with a variety of options from single origins, blends, decaf, and roast levels, from well-established specialty brands, and curated to your personal tastes. So for a limited time, you can get $40 off your first 2 orders when you use my code TheSprometheus at Cometeer.com. I've been a fan of Cometeer long before they were a sponsor, and I've kept my freezer stocked, so if you haven't tried them out yet, don't miss this opportunity to snag a serious discount. Since I already own a few Sworksdesign products, like my beloved WDT tool and the superbly spiky Porky Press, I had little to no doubt that the Sworksdesign flat burr conversion kit would be a solid piece. And of course, I was right. Each burr carrier is entirely made of steel, but still relatively lightweight, with the 58 set coming in at 171 grams and 168 on the 54. The pieces themselves have a nice fit and finish. The lower carrier, which is the one that spins, drops in and has fins that assist in pushing the grinds out. The upper stationary burr carrier fits in as a direct replacement for the original, and is machined to a pretty tight tolerance, so it can take a little wiggle to get it to drop in. There of course is some play in the upper carrier, but that's also the case for the original set. Sheldon also sent along a handful of burrs for me to test out, and all but one is specifically designed by Sworksdesign and have a variety of geometries and finishes. The installation is essentially the same as the original, which is nice because the simplicity of getting those burrs out for cleaning, in this case swapping, was part of the niche's charm. To change out the burrs, start by removing the outer adjustment ring. Take out the center screw, the anti-popcorning disc, and the center locking nut. Slip out the upper burr and carrier, then the lower burr and the sweeper. From there, brush out any remaining grinds from the chamber, as it could potentially obstruct the install or alignment. Then drop in the lower carrier set, and then the top. Place in the locking nut, the disc, and then secure the center screw. Reinstall the adjustment ring back onto the grinder, and then turn it until it's too stiff to spin. Then back it out slightly, do a few test runs to see when the grinder burrs touch, and then mark the new 0 point with the grinder marker on the outside of the niche's adjustment ring. And from there, you're ready to roll. It's quick and simple and only requires one tool, especially if you aren't going through the full alignment process. Okay, so now that we have the burrs installed, let's talk grinding and brewing. So one thing that should be noted right off the top of this section is the motor of the niche runs at 330 RPM with its stock conical set, which weighs 138 grams. So it's to be expected that the heavier flat sets will spin a little slower. That speed in the world of conicals is plenty, but many of you have probably noticed that flat burrs often spin at a much higher rate. The best way to explain this is that conicals pull beans down through the burrs using their teeth and a gravity assist, and then pulverize and crush them. And flat burrs drive the beans outwards through the burrs to cut and chip them. This of course leads to a different grind shape, texture, and consistency, but why speed matters in this case is because of time. When using the 58mm bronze set, grinding for espresso took an upwards of 3 minutes for a 17-gram dose, and 58 seconds for a 20-gram filter dose. Personally, it's not those long grind times that actually concern me, but the possibility of prematurely wearing out the motor. Using the 54mm set of Faimas, grinding for espresso was much shorter, about 34 seconds for 17 grams, and a little faster for filter at 27 seconds for 20 grams. These numbers aren't too far off of the original conicals, which grind through a 17-gram espresso dose in about 27 seconds, and a 20-gram filter dose in about 35. My best guess on why the 54s performed faster is partially due to their lighter weight, but also the beans seemed to feed into the burrs quicker, and adding to that, the grinds also had more room to exit between the carrier and the chamber walls, leading to much faster dosing. In the cup, the quality of the filter and espresso didn't seem to shift noticeably between the burr sizes, but I did find that all the sets I tested gave a much wider range of medium to coarse grind settings than it did for fine settings, reducing espresso dial-in abilities. For both the bronze 58s and the Faima 54s, I found myself having to grind very close to the 0 point for an espresso. With that said, they did produce cleanly flowing, properly tasty, and well-extracted espresso shots on a range of recipes and coffees. Now, I don't have to tell most of you that there's something just very comforting about the niche. It's like the coffee grinder equivalent of a weighted blanket or a hug from a close friend. So I can see the draw in trying to extend its usefulness and its overall utility by creating a flat burr modification. On top of the fact that conicals are just often seen as less desirable because their grinding mechanism naturally creates just a wider array of grind sizes, which can reduce a coffee's clarity but excel in complexity and texture. The fact is, both sets of burrs have their merits, and if you can have one grinder with 2 sets of burrs and a simple 30-second swap, that seems like a unicorn worth chasing, making it a truly all-around coffee grinder. So as I wrap this one up, I also want to reiterate that this isn't a full review of the modification or the burrs. It's just some early first impressions without any deep testing or tinkering. So over the next few months, I plan to put this mod to use on a variety of burr sets and brew methods, and we'll circle back with a much more in-depth video at that point. So in the meantime, I'll pass this conversation on to you. Let me know what questions you have about this mod, its build, its burrs, and its brews in the comment section down below. And as always, I'll see y'all next week. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Hit that little bell button for notifications of new videos posted every Friday. Check out my Instagram at Sprometheus for content throughout the week, my blog at Sprometheus.com, my coffee at littlegiant.coffee, and as always, stay caffeinated. Pony boy.